All right, welcome, folks. Thank you so much for joining this evening. I see there's some folks who are already introducing themselves in the chat, so thank you for that. For those who don't know me, my name is Lisa Williams. I'm one of the two co-founders of What's Your Grief? I imagine if you're here, you know a little bit about us already, but just in case, What's Your Grief is a large grief and bereavement support organization. We've existed since 2012, and we really work in this space to try to provide grief and bereavement support that goes a little bit outside of the box of traditional therapy and support groups. Those things are really wonderful, but they're not for everyone. And they're also only just one small part of your week if there's something that you have decided to incorporate into your grief support. So What's Your Grief has always been a place that has existed to provide either a supplement to some of that grief and bereavement support that you may be getting in traditional therapy and support groups, or really an alternative for those who are looking for something different. As some of you may know, Eleanor and I, who are the co-founders, Eleanor is a counseling psychologist. I'm a clinical social worker. We met when we were working for an organization providing grief and bereavement support to people who had experienced traumatic and unexpected deaths. And we were working with folks from that time in the hospital when they found out about those losses through 2, sometimes more years of support afterwards. And we ourselves had gone through really devastating losses in our kind of teenage and early adult years that formed a lot of our feelings about what sorts of grief support were missing in the world. And we were folks who didn't necessarily find traditional counseling and support groups to be what helped us. So part of What's Your Grief and what we have done for this decade plus that we've existed has been to try to fill the grief support space with other kind of creative alternatives, things like this that are psychoeducation, where you can kind of sit at home, absorb information, share in the chat if you want to, but just get a little bit of support in other ways and creative ways. So please feel free, of course, after tonight, if you're somehow on here and not familiar with us, which I doubt, but just in case, check out our website, what'syourgrief.com. There's tons of free resources and articles and information, podcasts, tons more ideas about coping with grief at the holiday season. So please don't feel like this is the only type of support if you leave this evening feeling like you could use something else. So with that, I appreciate so much folks who have already introduced. If you haven't and you want to introduce yourself in the chat, please feel free to share where you're joining from if you'd like, and certainly to share who you're remembering. Obviously, there is something grief related that has brought you on tonight, whether it's remembering someone who's died, whether it is someone maybe who you don't have contact with anymore. There are so many difficult situations we know with mental health and substance abuse and many things well beyond just the grief that comes with a death-related loss. And all of that comes up at the holiday season. You know, the holidays are this time of year that we get all these messages from all directions about family. And so all of these losses bubble to the surface, whether they are death or non-death losses. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Just so you know, the slides that I'm going to share, you're welcome to these slides. I will send out a recording after this session such that you can have the recording of this if you want to come back to it, but also the slides if you don't want to have to watch the recording and you just want to kind of flip through and remember a little bit of what we talked about. This will all be available to you, and I'll send this out to everyone tomorrow. So I want to start with just like this what feels almost obvious, this question of why the holidays are hard. And I know that if you're on here, it probably feels almost unnecessary to answer this question. But I think it's important because there are the reasons that are obvious that the holidays are hard. And then there are the reasons that aren't so obvious about why the holidays are hard. I think one of the things I mentioned already is just that this is a time of year that we associate so much with family and with traditions. And we're getting these messages from so many people around us about what the holidays are supposed to look like. But I think one of the things that is especially important for us to remember is that we have these really concrete, specific memories of the holidays. And so, your grief is hard and overwhelming and can feel impossible any day of the year. But when I ask you what you were doing on August 13th of 2 years ago, there is a good chance, unless that's a particularly special day to you, that you don't have a memory of exactly that day. But for many of us, if I ask where you were on Thanksgiving in years past, or on New Year's, or Christmas, or Hanukkah, these are days where we have very specific memories of where we were, of how we felt, of who was with us, associations going back all the way to childhood about what these days are supposed to represent and supposed to feel like. And so oftentimes we're comparing the present to these very specific memories of the past. And that really intensifies the pain that comes with the holiday season. I think there is this other piece of the holidays of this time of year, which is that we are going into or approaching the end of a year and into the next year. And with that, it can feel like the holidays and the year turning over is a marker of the passage of time, right? We feel so aware that this is one more holiday season, or we're moving into one more new year further away from that person, or without the person or people who we have lost and who we miss. And so the holidays are just this really stark reminder of that. So this may be the first holiday season, but this may be your second, third, fifth, 10th holiday season, and they're still hard, right? Because these memories bubble up about these very specific times in the past, and we are aware of this passage of time. For many people, there is a feeling or an assumption that the first holiday season will be the worst. And I want to share right now that for some people, that first holiday is absolutely the worst. But we know that for many people, for many reasons, the first holiday isn't the worst. Like sometimes the first holiday season is actually just a blur. It's about survival mode. That might be where you are right now. You may be joining, and this loss may be incredibly recent. And so you're just trying to figure out how to make it through the day. And that can mean that sometimes in the second year or the third year, that's when it feels like the reality is setting in. It's not just surviving that first holiday season, but it's facing the reality of every year going forward without someone who was so important to us, or sometimes without many people who were so important to us. And so I just to say that to normalize and know that if this is your first holiday, don't feel like that means it's guaranteed that this will be hard and next year will be harder. I just say it because it's different for all of us. And so it's important to just remember that if you're finding it harder this year than you did last year, that doesn't mean that you weren't coping well or that you're not grieving the way that you're supposed to. It just means that grief forever cycles up and down. There are always years over time where it's closer to the surface for us and our grief feels more intensified, and other years where it recedes a little bit more into the background and we feel like we're maybe a little better able to carry it that year and cope. Any of that is normal. I see that some of you, sharing in the chat that one of the reasons it may be really hard is that a lot of people sharing that the losses happened around the holidays. And so that can add this extra weight to it, right? If now suddenly you feel like all of the memories of the holidays aren't just those wonderful memories in the past, but maybe they are really difficult memories that are associated with the loss or other difficult times. So there's this huge range of reasons why the holiday season is hard. And, please, if there are other things about the holidays that feel hard, share those in the chat. I think these are just a few that we hear so often. In terms of what some of the things that we're going to talk about today, this isn't everything we'll talk about, but some of the things that come up so commonly that we want to at least touch on. Associated with things being hard and how we're coping. Sometimes you have that feeling of like, I just want to skip the holidays. I want to hibernate. I want to crawl into a hole and come out in 2024. And we definitely understand that and have been there. There can be a lot of feelings about wanting to skip some or all of the holiday season. And we'll spend a couple minutes just talking about that if that's the place that you're in right now. Sometimes we have this feeling of like, I want to engage in the holiday season. This is maybe a time of year that you have always loved or appreciated. Maybe there are family and friends you want to connect with. Maybe there's kids in your life. I see people, who have mentioned a little bit about other family and that pressure that comes with that, of wanting to engage, but struggling by feeling just overwhelmed. Grief at baseline it's exhausting, right? It takes so much out of us. And so our baseline level of energy oftentimes is being used in so many ways that it wasn't before your loss, just to help you to cope with what it means to live in the world after a loss, to try to remap this world without the person, to try to learn how to exist in this world. And so when you layer on top of that the stressors of the holidays, it can feel overwhelming to even approach the holiday season. So we know that might be one thing you're feeling. Another thing that you're feeling may be just that push and pull of different wants and needs at the holidays. Some people find the holiday season in grief to be this incredible distraction. And so they want to throw themselves in wholeheartedly. They go all out. They're like, this is a good way to occupy my brain and to be able to kind of help me to distract away from some of my grief. And that can be okay, right? Healthy distraction and a little bit of moderate avoidance, not chronic avoidance, in grief is really important and helpful for us. But there may be other people who are feeling exactly the opposite, right? Who are feeling like this is, I don't want all of this. This feels too dissonant to have all these festive holidays when it feels like my mood is so different. And when there's this person or people who aren't here with us, how can we create this holiday when that absence is there? So this tension between family members can be hard. It can also be hard because some people may really want to think about ways to honor and remember and memorialize people at the holiday, to bring that grief in to the holiday and acknowledge that it's there and sort of make it part of the holiday. Well, other people may be saying, no, we want to keep the sadness out of the day. So there's all these family challenges that can come up, which we'll spend a little bit of time talking about. There can also be guilt about the holiday season, just guilt about enjoying the holidays, about celebrating. There can be guilt in so many ways, just in how we live life after loss, of feeling a survivor guilt for enjoying anything without the person or people who meant so much. And so I think this can be such a difficult thing at all times of year, but especially at the holiday season. So we're going to talk about this guilt and how we can really understand how to hold that guilt at the holiday. And then, we'll talk a little bit about ideas for remembering, for connecting at the holiday season, to think about how we can use this time as a way to honor the people who we're remembering at this time of year, some concrete things that you may want to think about. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide because I know it's a sort of a really unique space if you're thinking about skipping the holiday altogether. That we do have other resources about this on What's Your Grief. So please, know that you can follow up there, and I'll send information about that when I send out the recording and the slides. But just a couple of things if you are thinking of just holing up and hibernating through the holiday. From experience, knowing many people who have done this over the years and learned many lessons through it, just that if you decide to do this, one thing that can be helpful is to really think about what you'll do instead, right? The days, we can't wipe them off the calendar. They're still going to happen. Everything that surrounds the days in the world around us, in the media, on social media, that's all still going to be there. And so sometimes when people decide to skip the holiday, they don't necessarily think through what they will do with their time instead. And the times that we hear the deepest regrets from people about skipping the holiday is often when they didn't make a plan instead, and the day came and they just sort of felt like they were antsy. They were hyper aware of the holiday, of the things that they weren't doing. And this goes for any of the holidays, right, that are coming up. So just being deliberate. I call this sometimes you can spend the day hiding or spend the day sulking, but plan for what that day will look like. If it's movies, if it's food, if you're going to reorganize your closet, whatever it is, but just have an idea of what the day will look like, because sometimes an empty day ends up being even harder than people expect. Think about and talk about this with other people, and just know and consider whether you're prepared to handle other people's responses. And if you're not, what you are going to do with that. Our decisions, we may feel like this doesn't have anything to do with all of you. I'm going to skip out on some things that we do every year. But that always creates feelings. And sometimes we're really ready to handle other people's reactions, and sometimes we're caught off guard by them. So just, it may be saying to other people that you don't necessarily have a lot of energy to talk about it, but you want them to know what your decision is, and hopefully asking people to just be able to respect that decision. And then, just consider if part of what's going on is that you are trying to skip a particular idea of the holiday, right? Of these memories that you feel like are going to be painful reminders. If it's that you don't have the energy for certain things. And if that's the case, sometimes you can redefine what the holiday looks like. Sometimes you can say there are no rules. I maybe am able to engage with certain pieces and not others. Maybe we're able to do things differently this year in a way that feels less stressful, or that feels less like it will be activating all of my grief in a way that feels too overwhelming. And so when you kind of give yourself permission to create space to redefine the holiday, you sometimes can find that there are ways to balance it. And oftentimes people will find that there is some work and stress that is involved in skipping the holiday. So knowing that it's never easy, no matter what you decide to do, but considering all the possibilities. And maybe in talking about some of these ideas this evening, it may help you to consider how you could do pieces of the holiday, but maybe do things a little bit differently. So in terms of where do we even begin? Where do we start in facing the holidays? One of the things that we really like to emphasize is that at the holiday season, and especially when we're grieving, we get so caught up in the what and the how and the where. Where were we in the past? Who was there? All of these different what's of the holiday season. Maybe it's food, maybe it's gifts. It's all of these different things that may be activating our grief or feeling stressful and overwhelming. And so starting from a point of bringing it back down to the why of the holiday season, in your grief, you may have realized that some of your priorities have changed dramatically, right? Stuff that felt important about the holidays in the past just doesn't feel as important anymore. There may be many things that were traditions or things that you engaged with that were a huge part of the holiday that now you just think that doesn't feel that important to me this year at all. And so reconnecting as you're engaging in the holiday season this year with what are the things that aren't about that, who and where and what are we doing and how are we doing it, kind of all of those details, but that underpinning why of what still feels really important to you, of why you do the holiday season, whether that is, any piece of the holiday season, and how does your family connect with those things. And that's where I think we can really start with just going, what are our values, right? What are those particular values that underpin the holiday? And you think, when I look at this holiday season, the feelings I want to feel, the values I want to connect with, the principles, the things that the holidays are all about, what are those particular things? And when we've established those, then we can say, all right, the way we connect with those things might look really different this year than it's looked in the past. It may be that in the past, gift giving was incredibly important and we went all out and everybody exchanged lots of gifts, and that was a huge part of the holidays. And maybe this year that feels so stressful to you. The idea of having to do that feels overwhelming. And so that might mean going, all right, is that something where that gift giving, it's not really connected with a value that is that important to me this year? Or is it, no, generosity is a huge part of the holiday for me. But maybe I connect with that generosity differently. Maybe we find some way to talk as a family about other ways that we can connect with giving or connect with generosity that doesn't carry that same level of stress that is coming up in me when I think about gift giving and shopping for everyone. Maybe it is the idea of friends and family, but that has changed in certain ways for you this year. Maybe in the past you hosted huge events with lots of people, and this year your priorities have shifted a little bit. And when you think about friends and family, you still want that to be part of your holiday, but maybe it is in smaller situations. Maybe the idea of a big group feels too overwhelming. And so you connect with that value of friends and family, but maybe you do a number of small things throughout the holiday season of just getting together with a few people here and there rather than larger gatherings, if that feels better. Maybe it's things that are not traditional. You say, I am going to skip anything that looked like a traditional holiday, but I do want to make a really concerted effort to reconnect with some friends who I've felt disconnected from in my grief. And, that's a value that feels important to me this holiday season. And so maybe I'll skip some of the traditional stuff, but I'll take some extra steps to have coffee with some people, or to just, kind of reach out and text some people who I haven't texted with in a long time. So really to be able to think about the idea that the why can help to guide those other what and how and where, and allow us some flexibility to think about how we might do some things differently and keep some things the same. With that, there are going to be things that maybe come out as you look at those values and the why behind your holiday, where you say, no, there are certain traditions, there are certain things that are so important to me. I want to preserve those this year. There is the way we have always done a Thanksgiving meal is something that feels so important to me about home and family and gathering together. So if that is what you're thinking, knowing what of those traditions feel really important to you to hold on to, And then considering what roles will need to be filled in order to make that happen. And this is where sitting down as a family can be so important, or with the friends who you spend the holiday with, or the friends who maybe can help to support you in your grief this year, knowing that the holidays are harder for you to face than usual, but that they're really important to you. So this is a space where it can be important to sit down and just say, all right, let's talk right now about the things that everyone wants to make sure we retain this year. Any traditions, if it's any foods, if it's any things that we always do, let's put all of those out on the table right now. Let's talk about all of those things. And then let's talk together about what needs to happen for us to create that holiday together. And this is a place where a couple of different things can happen. One is that we can acknowledge if there are roles that belonged to the person or the people who are gone this year. If this is your first holiday, and last year the person who always cooked that turkey was still here cooking the turkey, or if the person who always hosted a holiday meal, was still here, and if that has changed this year, there need to be really practical and logistical discussions, right? Who's going to fill that role? And it can't just be one person, right? Oftentimes if the person you lost filled a lot of roles, it can overwhelm someone if they feel like they're trying to fill all of those roles. Maybe that's you in your grief, feeling like you have to fill all of these roles. It can be important to say, Jenny, she did a lot at the holiday to make the holiday what it was for all of us. If we're going to come together and try to do some of those things this year, we're going to have to share some of those responsibilities. So talking about that as a family, and then talking about which traditions we want to hold and which things may have to flex a little bit. What are some of the things that may look a little bit different this year? And one of the things that can be helpful to remember is that just because it looks different this year does not mean that tradition is gone forever. Traditions have the ability to flex, right? We can say this year we don't have it in us to do something that we have always done before, but that doesn't mean next year we won't be able to revisit that thing. Or maybe last year in your grief, you started a new tradition that felt really meaningful last year when you did it, but this year it doesn't feel as meaningful. That's okay too. Sometimes it's being able to say traditions can ebb and flow. Just because we miss a year or skip a year doesn't mean they're gone forever. And just because we start something new doesn't mean we have to keep it forever. Sometimes it's something that means something to us this year, and it doesn't necessarily carry with us into future years. I really appreciate everything that folks are sharing here in the chat. I'm so appreciative to people sharing some of the things that they have done or are doing this year. I want to move into thinking a little bit about the pressures that we put on ourselves, and that sometimes at the holidays, one of the things that we need to do is think about how we can set some healthy boundaries for ourselves. Before we dive into ideas of remembering and the things that we can do that are action-oriented, sometimes we have to think about how we're going to protect our energy and we're going to protect ourselves as we grieve through the holidays. And considering this for other people as well, right? You may see that other people in your family or your friends who are grieving too, that they're needing to set boundaries, and their boundaries may look different than yours. And so sometimes we have to have more understanding and give each other a little bit more compassion and give ourselves a little bit more self-compassion, to know that we're all sometimes just trying to navigate this in a way that will allow us to have some balance for our grief while having some balance for the holidays. So we can't go through all of the many boundaries that you may want to set this holiday season, but I just want to share a few that are some common ones that have been helpful to people who we've worked with that have been helpful to us ourselves over the years, just to consider them. And in hearing these, it may help you to think about some others that might be important for you, that might resonate more with the things that you know are going to be hard for you this holiday season. So a boundary could sound like accepting an invitation, but from the very outset, putting a limit around it, right? I would love to come by for dinner, but I can only stay for an hour, so that we don't create extra pressure or exhaust ourselves by feeling an obligation to stay, and we've set expectations from the beginning, right? I'm happy to host this year, but I'm not going to cook or take any menu requests. I'm going to be buying everything pre-made. If there's anything specific that you'd like or dietary restrictions you have, please bring it with you, right? To be able to set a boundary around what we have the energy for. And again, put some things on other people if they have needs that you feel like are too much for you to meet this year. Being able to say no to invitations. Some of us are really good at this and some of us are not so good. And in your grief, it may feel hard to say no to things that you have always done in the past. So, thank you for the invite. It sounds lovely, but I can't make it. I still appreciate I'd still appreciate future invitations, but I'm not up for it this year. And I think that adding in about you'd still appreciate to be invited to things, one thing that can happen in grief is sometimes when we turn down people's invitations over and over, they think, oh, they must want some distance. They don't want me to reach out anymore. I'm being a pest to them or annoying. And so then people pull back on reaching out to us. And then we can end up feeling really ghosted and alone. And so it can sometimes be helpful to say to someone, I really appreciate this invitation. Please keep reaching out. I'm just not there yet, right? I'm not in a place right now where I can accept this invitation. If you are somewhere, being able to feel okay getting a little break, saying, you know what, this is a lot. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to get some space if you feel like that's what you need. And also to think about how you might set some boundaries so that you can leave places early, right? If driving separately, feeling like you have control over when and how you arrive and leave places can allow you that flexibility to feel confident going somewhere while you know that you can then also leave as early as you want to leave. We know in grief sometimes alcohol, other substances can be tough. The holiday season in general is a time of year where alcohol and other substances can be tough to manage. If this has ever been hard for you because either maybe you're in recovery, you're sober, or just because in your grief you realize your drinking has really crept up and you're worried about being able to continue to manage it during the holiday, or if you have a family where drinking and substances have led to holiday stress in the past, conflict, people coming and the holiday not being smooth because of other people's relationship with substances, you might decide to set some boundaries around substances at your holiday. We've decided that we're not going to have any alcohol at the holiday this year. We're asking that nobody brings any. We'll have tons of great food, non-alcoholic drinks. We would still love for you to be there. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, we understand if you decide to spend your holiday somewhere else. But that may be something that helps you to protect your own well-being in some way, or just the not having to stress about some of those things if it has been an issue with family in the past. Setting some boundaries around what people bring, right? Maybe it is politics. Maybe it is that your spouse or partner died and you have family members who keep wanting to talk about whether you've started dating again. It can be any number of things that we know we just don't want to face at the holiday. And so setting clear boundaries up front, saying, the holiday, it feels so hard just facing the holiday season this year. And so I am letting people know everything up front that I really need out of the holiday. And one thing I need is that we keep political conversations out of the dinner table. We keep any discussions about food and weight and calories out of the holiday meals and holiday tables this year. Whatever those things are that bring added stressors for you, to lay that out up front for people, to try to just take some of those weights or feelings of dread out of the holiday for you beyond grief. Right? Thinking about gift giving, if that is part of things, maybe it is a boundary around gift giving of saying, this is the thought of it is causing me stress this year. So I'm going to remove myself in some way, or I'm going to suggest that we do a family draw a name so that we're each only buying for one person. This can be tough when there's kids, right? So for little ones, sometimes we don't have a lot of control. We need to make the holidays special for them. And that may be a place where you enlist others in offering some help and support. There are so many instances, right, when people will say, let me know if there's anything I can do. And they don't always offer something specific because they don't know what to offer. And often we're saying, I don't know what I need help with. If holiday shopping is feeling stressful for you this year, that's a great moment to reflect and say, oh, wait, this is something concrete that I do know that I need some help with. This is something that one of those, is there anything I can do? People can do. And being able to reach out and just say, hey, I'm feeling really overwhelmed by some of this holiday shopping. Can I send you a list and Venmo you and ask you to pick up these items for my grandkids or for my sister or whoever that may be? That can be a big ask. If you're not somebody who's used to asking for help, it can feel like a big leap. But these are exactly the moments that we can and should try to reach out to the people who have offered some support to us. Oftentimes, though, you can feel like, oh, that felt like an empty offer. Many times, as you probably know from offering to other people, those offers aren't empty. We do want to be able to do something to help. We're just not sure what. And so oftentimes, especially at the holidays, a time of year where people do want to come together and help friends and family and be there for each other, this can be a really good time to enlist in family dynamics. I do want to say, Andy, absolutely, the acknowledging people moving away. As I said, in the start of this, so many of these losses that we're facing at the holiday season might not be death-related losses. There are so many non-death losses that can come up, and estrangements and pain because of so many other factors that impact family dynamics. So I really appreciate you raising that again, because it is such a big piece of what we can be feeling. Whoops, sorry about that. Let me see here. So, those are just some ideas about boundaries for yourself. It's important that you think about the boundaries that you might want to set that protect your holiday season this year in some way, that protect your energy and that acknowledge your grief. And in setting those boundaries, especially if it's hard for you, you can remember that this is actually a good space to invite other people to set their boundaries too, to be able to say, hey, I want us to all talk about this. What's feeling hard about the holidays? Are there things that everybody else is feeling might be difficult to navigate, or where if we talk about it, we might be able to support each other better? So this doesn't have to feel like you doing all of the getting your needs met without inviting others to do the same. It can open up a conversation that makes others more comfortable to talk about how hard it is to face the holidays and the different needs we might all have. And just remembering, right, that if you are somebody who carries the weight of the holiday season and the world and your family on your shoulders, of being able to say, in grief, there are so many moments where we disappoint other people, where other people disappoint us. we will survive that, right? We can survive that as a family. We can acknowledge that with our friends, with our family, and we can find ways to be able to still kind of get through and have great points about the holiday, even when some of those disappointments happen. So one of the things that we talk about in so many contexts, but I want to talk about it here because the holidays can make it feel especially present, is just that guilt that we can feel, right? I mean, you may be one of those people where like the holidays are absolutely your favorite time of year and you are looking forward to pieces of the holiday. You've maybe been decorating for Thanksgiving, or you're already thinking about the New Year's party that you look forward to hosting every year. And maybe that is providing these moments that are sort of glimmers of good feelings that aren't just about your loss and your grief. That can create guilt, especially if your loss is a little more recent and you haven't figured out how to navigate all of these moments of holding two very extreme different types of feelings together at the same time, right? Life after loss in so many ways is learning how to hold together that some of the most joyous moments that we will ever have also are bittersweet and painful, because they are reminders of the people who aren't there with us to celebrate, of the people who we wish were there, and of all of those kind of memories of the past. So there is always this bittersweet existence sort of that comes with life after loss. And one of the things that can be really helpful to remember is just that our pain is not our connection. Oftentimes in the early days of grief, that pain is so present that when it starts to shift, we think this must mean I'm forgetting the person. This must mean, if it's getting easier, or if I'm looking forward to something, or I'm feeling joy within the holiday, it is because my connection to the person is lessening and I'm letting go, or I'm moving on. And the reality is that our connection to them lives in so many other things other than our pain. Like our pain is about their absence, but their presence and the connection that we can keep to the way they're still present in our lives and in our holidays and in our traditions and our memories and our values, those can be about so many things other than just that pain. The reality is, in fact, that sometimes as the pain starts to shift and we learn to carry it differently, that we're actually able to lean more deeply into connections. If you always went to a Christmas Eve service with your brother every year, and last year, your grief was so intense that you could not even face that service, right? You had to hibernate and hide from it and take a break from it because the thought of going there was just too overwhelming. There is a good chance that if you revisit that this year, or you revisit it next year, that now maybe you've learned to carry your grief in new ways, right? You've learned how to manage and tolerate some of those emotions so that you can face the idea of going to that service again. And that actually allows you to reconnect even more with this memory of your brother, to maybe to be able to go to this place that was important to you, to talk about it with other people. That sometimes it opens up a space that actually allows our connection to become even deeper. And so as we move into the holiday, I think it's important to remember that pain, we don't have to feel guilt in the moments that we are not feeling pain, right? When that person was alive, we weren't thinking about them every single minute of every single day, right? There was lots of space in our lives where there were other moments. And that's going to be true in our grief as well, right? There are going to be moments when we're not thinking about them. There's going to be moments when we're feeling, joy and we're feeling sadness that they can't feel that joy, that they're not here for it. But maybe we start to be able to, find the ways that we're bringing them into those moments, or that we're feeling gratitude for our ability to feel that joy here in the world. So being able to learn to navigate this is like a long, hard part of grief. It's not something in 2 minutes in a webinar on the holidays that is going to magically be alleviated. That guilt isn't going to go away. But sometimes it's just learning how to carry it in the holidays a little bit differently, so that we can still find some space for the joy as well. I want to spend a little bit of time just thinking about really some concrete things that we can do for connection, and ideas that people have shared with us over the years, things we've incorporated, and then invite you all to share some ideas about how you may be thinking of building connection at the holiday season, about thinking about maybe memories and things you'll incorporate. So I'm going to share a number that can be kind of collective or done as part of family traditions. But I want to acknowledge first that when we look at the research around ritual and tradition and grief, that actually some of the most meaningful rituals and traditions that people have in their grief are not necessarily the family ones or the collective ones or public ones. They're actually the private, individual, secular traditions that we and rituals that we make part of our own loss. So even if you're not spending the holidays with other people, even if you're spending it alone, or you're doing something completely differently than what you've ever done in holidays in the past, you may find that there are little individual rituals or traditions that you want to make part of your day. Maybe they're just continuing the ones that you always make part of your day, but maybe it's new ones. Maybe it's new things that you decide you're going to do individually as part of your holiday this year. So just know that this can be collective, but it certainly doesn't have to be collective. One thing that I think many people start with, because the holiday is often associated with food, is to tap into the ways that food and recipes and traditions can be such a huge comfort to us. So this can be any combination of maybe making something that they loved, and again, throwing out the rules of the holidays. Like maybe you do make their favorite holiday side dish, but like maybe Taco Tuesday was their favorite thing in the world. And so you decide that this year for Thanksgiving, like we're having tacos, because that's a way to still bring family together, still do that, but maybe change up the tradition in a way so that it doesn't feel quite so intensely painful if that's feeling like too much, and it's a connection to the person. So maybe it's that. Maybe it is making something that they always made in the past, one of their recipes, again, holiday or not holiday related. And if you do that, giving yourself the flexibility to say, this is about me doing my best to make this. Maybe it will be exactly like it was when they made it. Maybe it will be a disaster, but that's okay. Either way, what's important about it is that we're going to be making it in their memory and acknowledging it. Maybe it's not related to them at all. Maybe what you do, because the holidays and because losing people makes us so aware of tradition and family and the possibilities that we don't know how long we all have. Maybe it's that you teach someone else in your family how to make a recipe that you know how to make from a past generation. Or maybe just it's your own recipe that you make every year and nobody else in the family knows how to make it. And so you decide this year you're going to teach some other folks, or you're just going to even give them the recipe card, just as a way to sort of honor food and family as part of the holiday season. One thing that sometimes people will do is consider ways that they can make memory sharing areas as part of their holiday. So this can be a basket or a jar. For some people, finding that holiday stocking, if that was part of your holiday can be so painful, of thinking like, do we hang this stocking? Do we not hang it? What do we do with it? But creating a place where people can write their favorite memories of the person who is no longer with your family, or of messages to that person that they would want to share, or things that they would want to tell them this holiday. You can do any variation of this that works for you. And some families do this and then they decide to share, like at the end of a holiday meal. Maybe you go through everything and share some of those holiday memories about the person. And some people do it very privately. It depends on the culture of your family to decide what you may want to do. But just thinking about how you might incorporate something like this. One thing that we love with incorporating for kids, but it is actually great for adults too, is a way to normalize just how many feelings are part of the holidays after a loss. Like that there is this intense pain and sadness, but also comfort and joy and guilt and anger, and that it's all there together. So one thing that we have done many times with kids and adults is to create memorial ornaments or memory ornaments or just holiday ornaments, where kids decide all the different feelings they're feeling, and they assign ribbons of different colors to each of those different feelings. And then, stuffing whatever it is, if you celebrate Christmas, doing an ornament. You can also do jars or, Thanksgiving jars, anything like this, and stuffing it full of all of those different colors to represent all those different emotions. And then using something else that you can sprinkle in there to represent memories. And if you do this together as a family, or as a group with kids, as they put in the memories, sometimes you can have people share the memories out loud before they put them in, if that's something people feel comfortable with. It's a great way to get kids talking about memories. And if kids are younger and they don't have a lot of memories, this is a great way for them to hear other people's memories and to be able to kind of make those memories part of their own story and connection to the person who died. So creating these and being able to hang them, and again, just create that honoring that the holidays may be so many feelings wrapped up together. Giving the gift of memories, or helping to share memories, and thinking of creative ways to do this at the holiday season. Maybe you're somebody who doesn't post a lot on social media about the loss, or maybe you do post all the time, but if you've never taken the time to ask people to share memories with you, this can be a great time of year to do that, to post online and just say, this Thanksgiving, I'm really grateful for the memories that people have shared with me about my son. And I would love if you have stories or memories or photos of him, please, I would invite people to share those with me. It would be a great comfort to hear some of those this year. And maybe it's giving that to other people, right? Of thinking about people in your life who may be grieving as well, and reaching out to those people and sharing memories you have of the person in their life. Maybe it's photos that they might not have or haven't seen, but finding ways to do that. Another idea that you can do this within the family, this is care of Eleanor. She was graciously shared this with us, is they have done at their holiday, when people have come over, they've put out photos from holidays in years past, or just other family events in years past. And they've invited people to write down what they remember about that day, or what they remember about that particular holiday. Because what they have found is that our memory is so interesting and different, right? We all have such different memories of different particular times or particular years. So this can be a good way to just get people to share different memories they may have of holidays past. And if you have them write it down in a way that can be preserved, and that can be really great for kids. If gift giving is part of the holiday, one thing that can be so hard is when you're walking through a store and you see something that you would have bought for the person who isn't here. It can feel so painful, not to get that thing, or to make a list of the people that you're shopping for and just know that they're not on it. So for some people, it can be a really big comfort to still buy a gift or two, or stuff the stocking with gifts that you would have gotten for the person who isn't who's died or isn't with you or part of your life anymore. And then you can think about what you want to do with that gift. Maybe you decide that you donate the gift somewhere. Maybe you decide that you give it to someone else who would love it as well. Maybe to one of their, if your son loved to skateboard, maybe you get something skateboarding related and give it to a friend of his who also loved skateboarding. Maybe, you do little stocking gifts and then you exchange them with each other, and talk about why you each bought the little thing you did in memory of that person, why you would have gotten it for them if they were still here. So just thinking about ways that you may, again, use that connection to generosity and the person as part of the holiday. Another idea that I really love, and I remember the first time someone shared with me that she did this, and I thought, it was just such a beautiful thing to acknowledge how we can take care of ourselves and show ourselves kindness and compassion when we're grieving and when it's so hard. Is that one of the things that can be so hard is knowing that we don't get gifts from them anymore, right? Maybe the person in your life who you lost was a really thoughtful gift giver. Maybe they always, bought you something every year that was a specific type of gift, or they just did a really good job picking something for you. It can be so hard when you don't have them and you have the reminder as you're opening other gifts that of that absence. So I remember once a woman whose husband died said, she said every year he bought me a piece of jewelry. And so I've carried that on, and I buy myself something, and I always look and I think about, what would he choose? What would he have chosen for me? Not just what do I think I would choose for myself. And it's a way to feel close to him at the holiday. So thinking about how you may create that as something as well. And I would love if people have other ideas to share in the chat. I see some already that some folks have shared, but if you have other thoughts of what you may be thinking about doing to feel connected during the holiday season, to remember, to include that person's memory into your holiday, or just anything else, please share what that is. And I love your gift that you're gifting yourself a medallion necklace with his initials. I think that's such a beautiful idea to think about. Is there a memorial related gift that you want to give yourself, or potentially other people in your family? If you go on Etsy, there is endless different memorial ideas on there of everything from, jewelry and keychains to home decorations. We have an article that I'll share that has some links to ways that if you have any of the person's handwriting, you can have it put on anything you can imagine, everything from like dish towels and cutting boards to prints to pieces of jewelry. So this is a wonderful time of year to think about that. I love that, Kathleen. You dried flowers from the funeral and you're going to make bookmarks out of them. And yeah, I love that. Wearing jewelry that's meaningful. Again, when we talk about those private rituals, those things that can bring us comfort to maybe get through the day or to get through a hard holiday, maybe it is wearing something that belonged to them as a way to just kind of help you to get through the day and feel close to them. There are, so many different ideas around the holiday season of things things that you can do that may be quiet little things to feel like you're bringing them in to the day. It may also be that if you've had a hard time going through your family members' belongings and parting with things, maybe it's been really hard to give things away, and yet you know that you can't keep everything and you've kept so much. This may be a good time to think about gifting things that belong to them. Maybe you gift some pieces of their jewelry or of something they collected, or of finding things that you look around, if they're in their shed or garage or room or wherever it is, you look around and think, what are some things that maybe I am ready to part with if I know that I'm giving them to someone who will really appreciate them, and someone in the family or friends. So this can be a great time of year to incorporate that, if that's something that means something to you, and thinking of with others. So I love having their favorite foods. I love that people are sharing all these great ideas in the chat. I want to respect people's time. I know we're right at 9:00. Eastern time, depending on where you are in the world. If you're here with me on the East Coast in the US, we're at 9:00. But I do want you to know I will share in the recording link tomorrow just some thoughts and considerations if you're spending the day by yourself, some ideas to just reach out and to make the day special, or to plan for your solo day so that you end up doing it in a way that feels good to you. We have tons more ideas on What's Your Grief, and articles, and podcast episodes, and different things. So if you're looking for more support, certainly go to the site. If you're on the newsletter list, we'll be sending out more things. And we'll be opening our Griever Hub, our membership hub, for 2 weeks coming up through the beginning of December. So for those, if you're on the wait list, that we will be opening, I'll be sending something out about that tomorrow. And if you're not on the wait list, I'll send a link when I send out the recording. Our Griever Hub is just our membership space where we do things like this every month, education. We do community writing sessions. There's a forum. We have Grief Cafe where you can kind of drop in and talk about things. We do creative coping ideas, and just a general space for a little bit of additional support beyond just all the free support that's on What's Your Grief. It does have a $19 a month membership fee to join. But we also, if that cost is a barrier, we have support to waive some of those fees if necessary. So we'll send that out, as well as another place for additional support this season. And then we'll be doing another free webinar on the 28th of this month. There's obviously all of the personal loss that so many of you are here that you're coping with, but then there is so much collective loss happening in the world right now, and we know that has made the holiday season feel even heavier, and just life feel even heavier as we're trying to navigate personal loss amidst so much that is going on in the world. So on the 28th, we'll do another free session like this that's just about coping with our own mental well-being when there is so much else in the world around us. And hopefully that might provide a little additional support as you navigate through this end of the year season. So please, everyone, do absolutely try to be gentle with yourself this holiday. Show yourself the self-compassion and kindness that you would show to anyone else who was carrying the weight of grief this holiday season. Sometimes we're so much harder on ourselves than we are on other people. So I hope that you're able to carry some self-compassion into the holidays. And I hope that this gave just a few ideas for protecting your energy, of remembering and connecting, and just having some conversations with the people in your life to get through the holiday season. Take care, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your evening.